warm welcome to the program today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. We begin with the protests in the Kingdom of Eswatini, a landlocked country in southern Africa bordered by Mozambique and South Africa. The Nurses Union claims 30 of its members were shot at and injured in Wednesday's protests. The nurses and other workers had been demonstrating in the main city Mbapapi, where they were met with what they said was an unprecedented show of force by soldiers and police. Now, southern African countries concerned by the protests happening with their neighborhood, within their neighborhood, beg your pardon, have deployed envoys to Eswatini to try to stem the unrest. While there are claims 28 people have died in the protests, at least 80 have been wounded by security forces in the latest wave of pro-democracy protests. The latest demonstrations are taking place after authorities loyal to King Eswatini III quashed an earlier round of demonstrations. South Africa, which chairs the security organ of the Southern African Development Community, on Wednesday ordered high-level envoys to fly to Eswatini to meet King Eswatini III to discuss security and political developments. The delegation includes Jeffrey Radebe, a former South African government minister, and Candice Mshigo Dlamini, South Africa's Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, as well as representatives from Botswana and Namibia. The envoys will be accompanied by SADC Executive Secretary Elias Magosi and other senior SADC officials. In the meantime, mobile operators in Eswatini have been told to suspend access to Facebook and its messenger app following the recent protests. No one of the government is answering any questions right now as to how long this would last or the penalties for disobeying the order. Our South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia is in Johannesburg with more on this. Betty, let's begin with the real reasons behind the protests. Are the people calling for more democratic governance?
Definitely. This started in June when 3 MPs, pro-democracy MPs, had called for democratic reforms. And then you had the protesting people who had gone to submit petitions for democratic reforms as well to the Tinkundla. These are administrative subdivisions of government. And then they were stopped. So this fueled the protest. I think a student was killed in May as well by unknown people. That added to the fire, and government managed to quell it up to a point. There was violence and looting by the people during that time. Now it's flared up again, where people are saying, look, enough is enough. We want to be citizens of a country, a democratic country, and not subjects to a king who is living large, and then the country is quite a poor country.
So what exactly is SADC's position on this? Because they're already jittery about the protests. How concerning is it for the region and for South Africa in particular?
Well, if any part of a region or a region, yes, is unstable, it definitely will affect others. And for South Africa in particular, I'm glad you asked that. Eswatini could pass for a province in South Africa. It's almost enveloped by South Africa, unlike Lesotho, which is in the middle of South Africa. But Eswatini is almost enveloped, save for the border that it has with Mozambique. So anything happening within Eswatini, any instability in Eswatini will affect Mozambique, will affect South Africa, among others. And you have many South Africans living here as well. But generally, instability in any part of a region will definitely affect other regions. That is why, and of course, South Africa chairs the Defense, Politics and Security Cooperation Organ of the Southern African Development Community, SADC. So that's why the South African president sent the delegation, including delegates as well from Namibia and Botswana, to Eswatini to engage with the king on the developments in the country. We understand in this case, one person has been killed. So the 29 that you were talking about is 28 from the last incident or the last spate of violence, and added to this one, yes.
Yes, and you just described the country as being landlocked, surrounded by South Africa and Namibia. So what sort of economic...
Mozambique.
sorry, Mozambique. What sort of economic importance does it have here that could put it at stake? That could put it at stake because of what's going on. I mean, the protests that are currently going on.
You mean put Eswatini or put South Africa?
Sorry, Eswatini. Yes.
Okay. Well, Eswatini is a small country with about 1.16 million people only, according to World Bank figures of last year. It's a mining country. Most of the time, the mining is for export. So all the affected stakeholders, all the countries that have interests, business interests, and many of them are outside Africa as well, they will definitely be affected. And tourism movement of people between the countries, between South Africa, between Mozambique and Eswatini. Just generally looking at it, any form of instability, and it's not a very rich country. You have deposits, an array of mineral resources in the country, gold, diamond, probably not in very large quantities compared to South Africa, but tourism is one of the places, and it has quite a huge inflow from Europe as well. So anything that happens anywhere affects other countries. It's a globalized world that we have now.
Yes, so I get the security concern here for the region, but is SADC and is South Africa also considering, exploring other avenues, perhaps a diplomatic means? Because, the Eswatini king, Eswatini III, keeps denying all of the charges, all of the accusations, by his own people, but he is still sending out the military to clamp down on these protests. That has to be a bit worrisome, for neighboring countries. We understand that. But what are they saying to him? What's the conversations they're having with him?
Well, we're not privy to that conversation yet. They're yet to engage with the king. Hence the sending of the envoys to engage, with the king. The king, you talked about the clamping down on social media and all that. They're trying to curb the outflow of the visuals from the country, and also not show the extent of brutality that people say they are going through. So they're worried. They're going to talk to him, to engage with him, and there are people calling for targeted sanctions as well. You know that the king is quite rich compared to the people of the country, and maybe after that they will be able to get government to sit with the people, to actually listen to what they have to say and what they would want from the government. So engagement with the king and his government. Hopefully there will be engagement between the government of Eswatini and the people of the country as well.
Yeah, we might have to wait.
And that hasn't happened.
Yeah. We might have to wait for the delegation to come back, since social media is off, in the country. It might be difficult to confirm.
It was off for 2 hours. I don't know if it's back now. I've been trying to speak to a colleague over there, but I can't seem to get through to him. But we heard 2 hours, and probably he came back and then off again. We don't know the real situation right now, other than what some of the activists are saying.
Yeah. Well, Bessie, keep trying. Hopefully, this the services will be restored, and we can get a true picture of what's going on in Eswatini. Thanks again for joining us on Network Africa.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
The Ethiopian government has confirmed it has carried out an airstrike in Mekelle, the capital of the Tigray region, for a third time this week. A strike, it says, targeted a military training center of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which controls the city with a population of more than 500,000. Mekelle has been the center of airstrikes by Ethiopian military forces, especially this week. Over the last few days, they've destroyed communications infrastructure in the city as they continue their campaign to weaken the Tigrayan rebel forces.
This video posted on social media captures what is left of the windows of a hotel shattered following airstrikes on Monday in Mekelle. It was shared by local non-profit advocacy group Obna Tigray. Mekelle was hit by 2 airstrikes on Monday, which local media said killed 3 civilians. The target has been major infrastructure which belonged to government but fell under the control of the Tigrayan forces. The communications tower was hit as well as other equipment. It's been 3 straight weeks of airstrikes, and details of casualties is still being speculated. A video obtained by Reuters showed plumes of smoke billowing from the scene of an attack. Witnesses say the strike appeared to be aimed at a major factory complex. The Ethiopian government says it was targeting buildings where Tigrayan rebels were repairing armaments. Fighting in the nearly year-old conflict is intensifying, having recaptured Mekelle and much of Tigray several months ago. The TPLF pushed into the neighboring Amhara and near Afar regions in July.
The UN is warning threats against civil society activists in South Sudan violate the revitalized peace agreement signed in 2018 to end 5 years of conflict. The UN Commission on Human Rights says it has noted with alarm and dismay the ongoing threats, harassment and intimidation of human rights defenders and journalists, among others. It says credible threats by the state's national security services on the lives of the activists had forced them to flee the country. It noted that the NSS had continued to harass colleagues and families of the activists, many of whom played a key role in the country's peace and justice processes. The UN Commission says bank accounts of the activists and those of the non-government organizations they lead are among those recently blocked on government orders. Meanwhile, more than 700,000 people have been displaced by floods, according to the UN, who has described recent floods in South Sudan as the worst to hit in decades. So far, at least 40 people have died across the country as heavy rains and flash floods destroy livestock, farmlands and homes.
The heavy rains and floods have left destruction in the states and communities they have hit, isolating communities with bridges and airstrips submerged, hindering any possible delivery of assistance of aid from the UN.
We've seen houses submerged, people wading through water, and infrastructure damaged. The floods are a reality. This is the 21st century.
4 states have been affected by the recent heavy rains, the worst some of them have seen since 1962, with people's ability to cope eroded by the 3 years of consecutive flooding. Some people have been stranded on islands and forced to survive by eating grass or roots, while others have walked for days to reach dry land. While the blame falls on climate change, the UN believes communities should not be bereft of ideas.
Climate change does not have to lead to despair, because there are solutions. Solutions include pumping, they include canalization, and they include good planning. What we would like to do as an international community, and what we must do, is support the efforts of the people and the government of South Sudan to combat climate change and to see how to make the lives of people better and more hopeful.
The rains are expected to continue for the rest of the year, likely increasing the number of people needing aid. Nearly a decade after South Sudan gained independence following a war, the country is grappling with the threat of conflict, climate change, and COVID-19.
Here in Nigeria, the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, has pleaded not guilty to the 7-count amended charge the federal government preferred against him. Mr. Kanu, who was docked before Justice Binta Nyako, said he was innocent of all allegations the federal government leveled against him. His rearraignment comes as the Department of State Services refused to allow journalists inside the courtroom, though our correspondent and 6 other journalists were initially cleared at the main gate. However, a source inside the courtroom notified reporters of the IPOB leader took his fresh plea to the 7-count amended charge at about 10:45 a.m. Justice Nyako also refused his application for transfer to Kuje Correctional Center, but allowed 3 persons of his choice to visit him at the DSS facility. The case has been adjourned to November 10th to hear his application, challenging the competence of the charges.
We are of the firm view, that the 7-count offense charge preferred against our client did not disclose any offense. So I can't see where somebody will sneeze in London and it become an offense triable in this country. Most of the counts were founded on non-existing law. So, and I don't want to delve into the substantive of application before the court on this on that note. And of course, you see, he was in court today. And we believe that justice will prevail in the end. So that's all that's happened today in court, and he has gone. So we're coming back on 10th of November to hear this application, because we insist that that application will be in line with the procedural law. That application will be first heard and disposed of. An application challenging the competence of the child. And when considering the affirmative, that is the end of the case. And so, because we are challenging the 7-count amended charge. So once the court hear it and rule in our favor, that is the end of the case, and they walk out the court from court a free person.
Religious extremism due to poor religious knowledge by some faithful of the 2 major religions in Nigeria have been blamed for most of the problems facing the country, including disturbing security challenges. The Sultan of Sokoto, Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar, who made the submission at the 2nd edition of the Nigeria Army Education Summit in Sokoto, says some clerics' lack of basic religious knowledge and a breeding poor understanding among followers. The Sultan then called on the military to adopt functional education in tackling the security challenges. Meanwhile, the Sokoto State Governor, Aminu Tambuwal, called on the military to focus not only on making the society safe, but also to ensure the safety of schools across the country. While the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, highlighted how the Army has placed premium on education.
A lot of our problems in this country and beyond, not only in Nigeria, had been religious extremism. So many people turn religious verses or books upside down to suit them, because they have not been proper guidance on what should be the teachings of especially 2 major religions in this country. So religious extremism has been a very serious challenge to us, and that was brought about so many of our insecurity challenges in this country. When I was a participant at National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, 2006, just before I became Sultan, my topic of research was on religious extremism as a national security problem, as a column then. And what I researched was exactly what I found when I became Sultan, as I started mingling with people. So education is one area where you can definitely deal with such challenges of extremism. And the other is for the security agencies and leaders of our various political divide to deal with all those who think they can turn this country upside down through religious teachings that are totally against the religion they so profess. We should not and we must not allow extremists to take over the spaces of our country, and we must do so by challenging them educationally and security-wise.
The Nigerian delegation to the Global Tech Exhibition, GITEX, has finally arrived at the event, which closes today. The delegation, comprising 9 startup founders supported by the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, is in the United Arab Emirates to attract strategic partners and investors. The late arrival is credited to the flight delays caused by the flight ban between Nigeria and the UAE, which is host country of the event. It's considered the largest tech conference in the Middle East. 192 countries are said to have participated this year. Our correspondent Mayowa Adibuki tells us more.
After travel complications caused by the flight ban between Nigeria and the UAE, Nigeria's delegation to the Global Tech Exhibition GITEX in Dubai arrives on day 4 of the 5-day event. Various opportunities for networking have been missed, but founders of all 9 startups showcasing their digital products at the Nigeria Pavilion express optimism they can make the most of their stay.
Yeah, of course, anything is possible. So we'll be optimistic, and we believe that everything will work out for the best.
So basically, from my own understanding, is the diplomatic route between Nigeria and the UAE, where I believe this can be settled because we have a long-standing relationship between both countries, and it's just a matter of time, and we'll all be happy coming back to Dubai.
GITEX provides the opportunity to attract investments necessary for these founders to scale up their business, which offers solutions in various fields, including fintech, waste management, mental health care, and transportation.
We have about 10,000 service providers on our waiting list. But the problem with that is most of those people on our waiting list are not Nigerians. We want to give Nigerians this ability to come on board first, then other African countries that come on board, then we'll open it to the wider world. And trust me, Choplock is the first technology company from Africa that can be used in any part of the world, whether as a service provider or as a subscriber.
We provide innovative waste management solutions for homes and commercial hubs through our smart waste bin that communicates information regarding the content of the waste inside the waste bin to waste management centers to come and pack the waste in order to minimize diseases and infections.
Their presence here is backed by the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, which is determined to ensure Nigerian youth get access to international opportunities.
The president expanded the mandate of our ministry to cover digital economy, because digital economy is the fastest growing economy in the world. So this is an opportunity for us to bring our startups to see what is happening globally so that we can go back and replicate it at home.
Nigerian startup ecosystem is very vibrant, as you know. Globally now, we have a lot of startups that are getting a lot of international attention. So we take opportunity with GITEX to showcase them, especially those in the area of digital-related activities.
As these Nigerian tech founders scramble to get last-minute opportunities, the Nigerian government may need to pay a closer attention to the impact its ongoing diplomatic row with the UAE is having on the Nigerian youth and the Nigerian economy. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Maya Wadegoke for Channels Television News.
And we're coming closer to the continent, to Egypt now, where Nasser Abdel Basset is one of the few remaining fez makers in the country, keeping alive an industry that has flourished since 1805, when Muhammad Ali Pasha ruled the country. Watch.
For nearly 45 years, Nasser Abdel Basset has been the proud maker of the felt hat that was once worn by Egypt's elite, employees and students, the fez. Located in the old Cairo street of Al Goreya, Abdel Basset's workshop is among the very few remaining that have survived the test of time.
I learned the craft from an apprentice. I inherited it, and now I am passing it on. You can say that the crafts will disappear. How come? I am passing it on to my children.
The industry flourished during the rule of Muhammad Ali Pasha, the Ottoman army officer who seized power in Egypt in 1805. Wearing the fez was almost mandatory for the country's leading officials, public employees and students, and was considered a sign of the wearer's stature and education. When the country's military toppled Ali's ruling dynasty in 1952, however, the fez hat was abolished as it was considered one of the symbols of the former ruling elite.
This is the basic foundation of the fez holding palm fronds. As long as the palm fronds look like this, I can shape them into the Yamama fez worn by the Al-Hazar, or I can make a fez like the one worn during the rule of King Farouk. This palm frond is what we work with.
Students, scholars at Al-Azhar University, as well as Muslim religious clerics, are now Abdel Basset's only clients, as it represents an important part of their uniform and history.
So glad they've been working towards preserving that. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.